Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome, welcome. Good to see you guys. If it is your first time joining me, let me just get my notes here. I'm gonna teach you a little something today. If it is your first time joining us, I know that we have a few new members to our group. I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Shamla. I am a podcast host, media expert for national TV, and founder of the EQ Code, where we help high performing women transform their relationships so that they can execute fully on their mission. I am deeply passionate about supporting women so that they can actually show up differently. They can show up fully and unapologetically in every single area of their lives. And the reason that's so important to me is because I deeply believe that the way that we navigate our relationships has a profound impact on how we show up, not only personally, but professionally as well. And it can be one of the greatest blocks to our success if we don't have the skills and the strategies to really navigate our relationships with confidence and with ease. So, if you are new around here, I want to welcome you to this group. I want to welcome you to the community. It is a really awesome community of women that are all about dialing in their mindset, their communication, their relationship, and their leadership skills. So, today, what I'd like to do is talk with you about something that I use inside of my private coaching programs. It is a framework that I use specifically for communication. So, I'm going to teach you today how to use the C.A.S.E framework for better communication. And I'm going to break down exactly what C.A.S.E stands for, and the different elements of it, and how to actually apply it to your relationships, to your leadership, to the way that you show up in every area of your life. And the reason I really wanted to talk about this today is because communication for me is an absolutely critical skill when it comes to showing up in all areas of our life. So whether that's personally or professionally, and if you think about it, communication, how you express yourself, whether it's your needs, whether it's your wants, your desires, whether it's boundary setting, whether it's saying no, these are all aspects of communication. And essentially, communication is the vehicle that allows us to move through our relationships, right? So, when you think about, I often talk about relationship management skills. I often talk about, how do we shift the way that we're showing up in our leadership roles, whether that's professionally, whether that's at home, whether you are an entrepreneur, a clinician, doesn't really matter, right? But how we show up in these different areas and how we show up in these different roles, I believe, is so strongly predicated on our ability to really hone in on our communication skills. Communication is how we interface with other people, it's how we interface with the world. It's for me, communication skills becomes the difference between living a life that you're feeling really satisfied with, living a life that you feel really passionate about, living a life where you feel you're able to engage fully and unapologetically, versus living a life where you feel like you need to play nice, be polite, stay quiet, please others, not rock the boat, all of those sorts of things. And the evidence is unwaveringly clear that, particularly as women, when we learn to stay quiet, when we learn to people please, when we have a complete lack of boundaries in our lives, we are headed towards decreased mental health, right? Decreased mental health. And not only that, the area for me that I have become really, really interested in is not only are we headed towards decreased mental health, but the other thing that happens is we begin executing far below our capacity. So, what do I mean by that? When you think about your own personal mission, when you think about your professional mission, when you think about what you've really been put on this earth to do, when you think about what you're really excited about and really passionate about, when you think about what you're feeling pulled or called to do in this world, if you don't have the skills to navigate your relationships all of your relationships with confidence and with ease and with clarity and with a certain level of competence, what ends up happening is it actually gets in the way of you executing fully on your mission. And I think for me, I really came to this through personal experience. I came to understand that my own difficulty saying no, people pleasing, not being able to set boundaries, not being able to ask for what I need, not knowing how to be assertive without feeling like I was being aggressive or without feeling like I was being an egg or without feeling like I was being bitchy, right? Not knowing how to do that had a huge negative impact in terms of how I showed up, not just at home, but also how I showed up in my business, how I showed up as an entrepreneur, at how I showed up, when I was a clinician, as a clinician, how I showed up as a leader. And so these are skills that truly for me have been invaluable. And I often will say this to I lead a clinical team at my psychotherapy clinic. And one of the things I will often say to them is that, we can have we can have access to the most amazing research and evidence and textbooks and case studies. And we can be the most skilled clinicians. We can understand and know how to execute interventions. We can really understand how to unpack people's mindset and their cognitive distortions and their limiting beliefs and all of those sorts of things, right? We can have all the most amazing training in the technical skills, but if we don't have training in the emotional intelligence skills, I really believe that's what sets apart a leader who is just killing it in their field, a leader who is just showing up authentically and with courage, a leader that is having an impact, someone that is thought of as a mentor and who is inspiring and who is literally leading by example. That's the difference, right? It's not about her technical skills. It's not about what she brings to the table necessarily as a professional. I think what really sets us apart as a trailblazer, as someone who's having, massive, massive impact, is how we navigate our relationships, which essentially comes down to emotional intelligence skills. That's what it comes down to. And guys, the research again is unwavering. I think that the stats are over 85% of our financial success is predicated on our ability to navigate our relationships. The research calls it human engineering, right? Human engineering, our ability to communicate, our ability to negotiate, and our ability to lead. These are such powerful, strong predictors in terms of our success. And I am deeply on a mission to help women dial in these skills so that we can have the impact that we want to have, right? Whatever impact it is that you want to have in your area of expertise or in your field. And I'm even talking about impact at home, right? Impact as a leader within your home. Whatever impact you want to have, I want you to feel equipped to have that level of impact. And I don't want something like your mindset, your communication skills, or your relationship management skills to get in the way of your ability to lead and to lead well. Well, that was a bigger introduction than I had planned, but you can probably hear my excitement and my passion about this particular area. So let's dive into this particular framework that I use in my signature program, my flagship program called the EQ Code. And the reason I designed the EQ code, period, but also the reason that I came up with this step by step framework for communication, particularly for women, is because I recognized that the problem for most of us is that we were never taught how to communicate effectively. So, what happens is we keep repeating old patterns over and over again, hoping to get a different result. So if you are listening, I want you to think about this. I want you right now in this moment to think about what are those old, ineffective, unhealthy, unhelpful patterns of communication that perhaps I was taught growing up that I continue to repeat again and again and again. What are those patterns of communication that I continue to repeat? And I want you to be honest with yourself and really ask yourself, if I continue to remain stuck in these patterns of communication, how will it affect and how will it impact my ability to execute at my fullest capacity? I truly want you to ask that question because, this can be a really eye opening and defining exercise. Again, I know it was for me. I knew the things that were getting in the way for me. I knew the things that were keeping me stuck. One of the things I often talk about is that I grew up with a huge, massive, almost debilitating fear of public speaking. I was deathly, I would shake, I would sweat, my heart would race. I couldn't even hear my own words because my heartbeat was so loud in my ears. I had such a huge fear of public speaking. And I would avoid it at all costs. And I remember having this moment, this sort of fork in the road in my own career. It was when I was it was during my master. So this is how long it lasted for me, right? It's not something that I overcame in my childhood. It was when I was doing my master's degree. I remember this moment because I would be asked fairly regularly to do talks, to do workshops, to speak on different topics like anxiety, talk about, relationship strategies, confidence. Like those were the most common topics that I would be asked to talk about. And I would always find an excuse and a reason not to actually have that talk, not to, go up in front of people and share my expertise, my knowledge, my strategies, all those sorts of things. And I had this moment where I got really honest with myself and I was like, wait a minute, this is getting in the way for me. This is making, this is causing me, this is dictating my choices. This is causing me to say no to what could be really amazing opportunities. So that's what I want you to ask yourself right now. What patterns, this was a pattern of thinking for me, right? But what patterns for you, whether it's mindset, whether it's communication, whether it's relationship management, what patterns in your life are still present today that are causing you to perhaps say no to opportunities, that are causing you to shrink, that are causing you to um, consciously not be executing at your fullest capacity. What are those patterns? I want you to have that in your mind right now as I walk you through the C.A.S.E framework. Okay. So the C.A.S.E framework, to give it some context, it is my absolute number one go-to favorite skill that I teach women when we work on communication. Okay, so when we're working specifically on the communication element of emotional intelligence and of relationship management, this is my favorite go-to skill. I use it time and time again. I still use it in my own life. Okay. And the framework, we use it because what it does is it sets us up for success when it comes to having difficult conversations. It actually lays the foundation, it lays the framework, that's why I call it a framework, for having difficult conversations. So as you're listening to me teach today, I want you to think about, is there a difficult conversation that I need to have? Is there a need that I might need to express? Is there a boundary that I might need to set? Is there a person that I may need to renegotiate our relationship? And I want you to think about how you could use the C.A.S.E framework for this particular scenario. It's always helpful when I'm teaching for you to have a specific person, a specific relationship, a specific scenario or situation in your mind. Okay. So let me walk you through what C.A.S.E stands for. So it is an acronym, and I will, you may want to take notes on this one. This is a note taking session. So let me walk you through it. So the C stands for context. The A stands for ask, the S stands for specific, and the E stands for embrace and let go. So K stands for context, ask, specific, embrace, and let go. Let's unpack this so you understand how to actually action and implement this strategy in your own life. So, whenever you go in to have a difficult conversation, I believe it's really important to set some context for that conversation. You never want to start a difficult conversation with a complaint, like you certainly don't want to be dysregulated. We'll talk about that in a moment. But you always want to start a difficult conversation, a boundary setting conversation, a conversation where you are renegotiating about a relationship, for example, with context. So, what do I mean by context? You are going to, as the speaker, as the person that's about to execute on the C.A.S.E framework, you are going to give the other person um, 1 to 2 sentences that will define the context in which you are approaching them to have this conversation. So, 1 to 2 sentences max. And the reason I say this is it's very, very important to be concise, particularly when you're having conversations that might be difficult. So, you're going to provide 1 to 2 sentences max, be concise, and you're just going to give a little framework, a little context for why you want to have this conversation. So, it could sound something like this. I got your email yesterday and just wanted to take a moment to respond. Do you have a few minutes for me to talk about that project that you wanted me to complete by the end of the week? Just using that, I'm using a work example, okay? But this really could apply anywhere. It really could apply anywhere. All right. The next thing is ask. You always want to have a specific ask. You never want to go into a difficult conversation without knowing ahead of time what it is that you are asking for. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? It's like oftentimes when we decide we need to have a difficult conversation is because we are unhappy with something or something's not going well for us, or we're feeling upset, anxious, whatever it is, right? Angry, maybe frustrated. And so when we are flooded with those kinds of emotions, it's difficult for us to get clear on what it is that we actually need. What is it that we are actually looking for? So it's very, very important to have an ask. Right. So define for yourself. And I say to the women that I work with, write it down. Actually, don't just have the ask in your head, but write down for yourself what is the specific, concrete request that you are making of this other person. And a tip for really dialing in the ask element of the C.A.S.E framework is to make your ask as behavioral as possible. When we speak in behavioral terms to another person, when we are asking for something, when we are being assertive, when we're having a difficult conversation, what happens is it makes that ask far more concrete, and it is easier for that other person to understand exactly what it is that we are looking for. So it could be, if I stay with the example that I started with, it could be got your email yesterday, and I wanted to circle back to that and talk with you today about the project that you asked me to complete for the end of the week. I've had a look at my schedule and it doesn't look like I am going to have the time to do it this week. Could we please push the deadline an extra week? That's a very specific, concrete ask. I've come to the table with a solution and I'm asking for it. The next element of the C.A.S.E framework is S, specific, and this absolutely ties into the ask. So when you are asking for something, as I've said, you want to be as concrete and as specific as possible. You don't want your ask to be too open-ended. You don't want it to be too broad. Because when you do that, what's happened probably is you haven't taken the time ahead of time in that conversation to really identify for yourself what it is that you need. And I'm a very firm believer that it is our responsibility to identify what we need. We shouldn't be putting that on another person. We shouldn't expect another person to read between the lines or be have this magic ball to know exactly what it is that we need or how to meet our needs or how to make us feel better. That's nobody else's responsibility, right? It is our responsibility. And so part of what I teach women is in order to feel really empowered in your life and in order to show up fully and to show up unapologetically, the first thing you need to do is take radical responsibility for your happiness, for your needs, for your desires. They belong to you, right? And so, a way to honor that is to get really specific and concrete in terms of what you're asking for. The next thing is to embrace and let go. And this is a big one. And this ties all the way back to sort of the first foundational pillar that I work with women on, which is mindset. And in mindset, we really talk about how to remain self regulated, the importance, the power, the magic of self regulation, and how truly learning to be self regulated, learning to take radical responsibility for your moods, for your emotions, for your thoughts is really what's going to empower you to show up well in your life. And so, embrace and let go. It's all about when you engage in a difficult conversation, it's so important that you do that mindset work in advance so that you actually have the capacity to let go of the outcome. I say this all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it because I just believe it so profoundly. Having assertive conversations, having difficult conversations, having the courage to ask for what you need has nothing to do with whether or not you're going to get that thing that you're asking for. Just because you ask for what you need, just because you ask for something doesn't mean that that other person is required to say yes or give it to you, doesn't mean that that other person is going to do it or that they're willing to do it or that they have the capacity to do it. Right? We don't have control over that. Having assertive conversations and navigating your relationships in this way that I'm teaching you is truly for me, it's all about having the courage and the integrity to show up openly and honestly and transparently in every aspect of your life. It's that whole idea that I have the courage and the integrity to be the same consistent person as I move through the world. And I'll tell you, nothing has positively impacted my mental health as much as this principle, as much as the idea of embracing that for me, navigating my relationships is not about the outcome. It's not about people meeting my needs. It's not about people making me feel better. Navigating my relationships well is all about me. It's all about me having the courage and the integrity to show up fully, to show up unapologetically, to be open, to be transparent, and to be authentic. I hope that this was helpful. I want you to let me know what resonated. You are welcome to, if you're watching this Facebook Live, you can comment right in the comment box here and let me know if you're watching the replay. Give me a hashtag replay. Let me know what's resonating. Let me know what you want to know more about. As you know, I show up very regularly inside this Facebook group to coach and to teach. So I'm always interested to hear your feedback. And if you need more support on how to implement these ideas and these strategies, and you would like to apply for a free strategy call with me, let me know that as well. Myself or a member of my team can send you the link. So just ask me about any of those pieces, and I will see you guys again on Thursday. What day is it today? It's Tuesday. I'll see you on Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for our EQ Skills Clinic right here inside the EQ Lab. All right, guys, have an amazing day.